For a long time I've been going to do this video, but either I haven't had enough that I knew I was going to be able to put into it, and other times I haven't been feeling good enough, and today is a combination. But over the last 3 years, I've been, studying and researching a lot of things. But one of them is about UFOLOgy, extraterrestrials, and Bible prophecy. I've gone through probably 100 hours of scientists, engineers in the military, CIA, contractors. They put all their information on the information they do put out. They put it on Coast to Coast AM. And a lot of people don't know what Coast to Coast is. I never did. I never wanted to really get into listening to that station because of the different off topics to get involved in. But I have to admit, in the last 10 or 11 years, longer than that now, since 9/11, this is now in 2014, a lot of things I've been studying or searching information for cross the intersection of a few different things I never would have wanted to go doing research about. That said, at one point, in some of the things I have studied, it was just couldn't avoid getting into some areas of study that otherwise I would have just overlooked, dismissed, and got tired of seeing the same things come up in key searches. Now, in other videos I've mentioned that I used to study and teach Bible prophecy. And the organization I work with, our interpretation of Bible prophecy, end-time events, were a fair bit different than most prophecy teachers. And for the last 20 years, a lot of the timelines and deadlines for end-time events came and went by, and they didn't happen the way, our prophecy teacher told us it would probably happen. He was an author named David Berg. He started an organization originally called the Children of God. Later, they were called the Family. Then they became the Family International. And now they're Family Care International. And on missionary work, they do very good. And I'm really happy to have been able to work with them, until the late 1980s, when they had a big purging at their ranks. And since then, years have gone by, and I I've had to start my life over. Thousands of people have. And I never ever wanted to get involved in all the old stuff, study and teaching that a lot of my co-workers did and do to this day. As far as Bible prophecy. Then, over 5 years ago, people who used to follow what I was writing during the Terry Schiavo case kind of pulled me into a social network called Restore the Republic. And that was where I started learning a lot of things I'd had a lot of questions about concerning the government, the Federal Reserve, economics, politics, and even religious movements. The early church, the Christian Crusades, Muslim movement, Buddhists, Scientology. I learned a lot when I started, studying and got a lot of information and sharing a lot of information for a couple of years. I Restore the Republic. That organization is very good. They've been really working hard to restore the U.S. Constitution. And I really appreciate those guys. Although I'm always an independent activist. I've been an independent disability rights activist since 1995. A few years later, I got connected to a few of the major worldwide disability rights organizations. But to this day, I'm still an independent disability rights activist, and that's mainly my main interest until I die. And that's been a major part of what I'm really currently working on the last few years. Not so much the last couple of years, because I've been declining. We're not going to live forever, but at the same time, I'm sick and fed up of this so-called right to die societies, but one of the biggest scam, and they've been getting away with it because they sucker people into fear of dying and end-of-life issues. So anyway, that's toppling euthanasia laws and blocking further ones. That's really what I work on as much as I can. That aside, I got to the point where the information I've been learning and constantly researching on is at a lot higher level, and unless Americans and Canadians get their eyes off the ground and focus on the key areas of who is to blame for all the wars, the diseases, and the poverty in the third world, we need to focus on that and fix the problem. So that's mainly what I do: read, study, and research as much as I can. Now, in 2011, right after the Fukushima earthquake, 9.2 earthquake, I saw something on YouTube one day that there was a guy named Dutch Sense who had a 2 to 4 day accuracy in predicting earthquakes. You can bet your hat I dropped everything that I was studying or researching at that time, and I bit right into the next, I'd say, four months. Well, maybe not that long, because by that time I was involved in the Libya situation, studying, communicating with journalists. With Colonel Gaddafi, what was the truth from the lies, and all that. But for Dutch Sense, I really followed his information and what he was learning as he was going along, and it was really impressive. So a lot of us have been learning that what we attribute to being Mother Nature has been somewhat intercepted by not Mother Nature, but by man and corporations, the military-industrial complex, big companies, big war manufacturers. These guys have learned how to tap into energy sources to make it do what they want to do, including alter and manipulate weather formations, tornadoes, which naturally have small little finger-like areas for tornadoes, which have grown into half-mile diameter tornadoes, engineered by the military. Those guys that we think are on our side. Well, a lot of the people that have to do all the dirty work, they are on our side. But up the ladder, at the top, they aren't interested in our side or our interests or anything. They are interested in continuing war all the time to make it profitable and to control the world population and to eliminate as many of us as they can, especially in the third world. So, during all this information, which is available on YouTube, a big information rule is involved with extraterrestrial science, UFOlogy. UFOs. Those things that we're supposed to laugh about, like the witches and the goblins on Halloween. It's just like so simple, little funny humor. While the real witches on Halloween are doing serious, dirty business. And we've grown up in a world where we're told lies as children. The first one is Santa Claus. Oh, 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 oh. The jolly old soul. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. He's pulling old Santa around the world on Christmas Eve. Oh, 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 oh. And he jumps down the chimney. Millions and billions of chimneys to give the children their Christmas presents. Oh, oh, oh. The other childhood lie is the tooth and the fairy. That's children's first teeth all out when they're sleeping. A fairy visits every little boy and girl and gives them a coin under their pillow. And every year until Johnny and Susie discovered that Mommy was a fairy, he came and hid the coin under the pillow. Oh, that's too much for Johnny and Susie. So it's no wonder when we grow up as children, learning to believe lies and liars, that the end result is you have atheists who doubt there is a God, who doubt that the world was ever created, and that's because Charles Darwin believed in evolution, and that evolution is a product of Nietzsche, the bitter little boy. He was so traumatized because his daddy and brother died of some disease, some sickness. Maybe they didn't wash their hands in hot water and soap or something, I don't know. And poor little Nietzsche, he was so hurt, so bitter. And he grew up. And then next thing you know, he becomes a world's star on stage of philosophy. And somebody even wrote that Nietzsche's the guy who killed God and went on to find his own destiny. And there's Freud and Nietzsche, the two greatest philosophers who have poisoned the entire academic community for the last 200 years. Well, 150. All the psychologists, the big shot philosophers. So we have a world of atheism, survival of the fittest, and so during the 60s, I was in school the first time I ever heard something about a UFO flying object. And, there's a few times where there was even newspaper write-up in the Winnipeg Free Press. I was originally from Manitoba. And so there was this newspaper article which supposedly people have been kidnapped and taken into a UFO and they returned to tell their story. So at that time I would think, oh well, maybe so, maybe not. There are other kids in school say, yeah, I saw a UFO just last week. Well, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, I don't know. And I've been that way ever since, even though for the last 10 years, I've been seeing stuff on the internet about all that stuff. But it's just like 9/11. When I heard that, well, what was this? I never did really listen to Alex Jones, but I heard posts on message boards and stuff like that where people were claiming that the U.S. government did 9/11. But I never got seriously into that. I doubted it until 5 years ago. And it was a real shaker-upper. It really was. So I understand why most people doubt that 9/11 was an inside job. But anybody who gets through the information that a lot of us have understands it was an inside job. Now, what's this got to do with UFOs, the Bible prophecy? Okay? In the last year, I've heard, when I've been asking questions about certain things or making opinions I had about in view of the information I've been going over, different people have mentioned about neraphims or seraphims or something like that. And they said it's in the Bible. So I did this. So finally today I decided I'm so fed up procrastinating and never getting this video done. So today I'm going to do it. So I pulled up the Bible software. Let's see what's it says. BibleBrowser.com. JGV. King James Version. BibleBrowser.com. So I pulled that up this morning. Did a search for seraphims. For the seraphims. No, I don't know. I think I was looking for seraphims. Or and neraphims or something. Oh, and it turned out there is a search in Isaiah, the Old Testament, for seraphims. One guy I've been paying attention to his research of the Disclosure Project is Stephen Greer. And last year he made a movie called Sirius. And quite a few people around the U.S. have been getting to see that movie. And still, the government is not coming out in the open, and because the big threat to it is the military-industrial complex, all the corporations who are invested in all this free energy profits. They want to keep a cap on the right to charge and extortionist prices for whatever energy the people around the world need. And if we come open up, that'll be an end to their patents. That'll be an end to having a monopoly on anything, and it'll be an end of their ability to control the world population. It'll be an end. There will be no more need for bankers, no more need for a war machine, because as Jacques Fresco at the Venus Project has made very clear, that when all the people around the world get a chance to have the things they need to live on, to have food and whatever things they need, clothes, a place to live, and all the world has that, there will be no need for banks, economic system, where money is the controlling force. So everybody will be equal to one another. And that's the way God created it. God created all of us equal. And Jacques Fresco and under those science groups, science gurus, believe in God. The Zeitgeist movement, they believe in the need to be totally secular and, well, to deal with policy making and political issues, yeah, secular governance is definitely a must, where you can't prefer one religion over another. You know, you got the big three, like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and then you got the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Sikhs, the Brahmins, New Age, you got Scientology. You'd have them all bickering and fighting. So to deal with real concrete issues as far as the resources being freed up for everyone, and to not overuse the resources, because if you overuse the resources of the planet, well, the population will suffer. So still, it doesn't mean that we're not going to believe in God the Creator. And to this day, nobody has ever proven to me that the world or the universe ever evolved. And although they got these funny old men in the mountain in Switzerland in their Hollister Collider partying a few years ago, their great god, the God Smasher, was finally underway. That they were going to find out how the Big Bang made the universe from a soupy mess and evolved. Nobody's proven to me. Oh, a few Zeitgeist members tried to persuade me that there was a lot of evidence, but all the evidence they gave me was evidence which is totally dependent on evolution being a fact. And Darwin introduced evolution as a theory. He never introduced it as a fact. Yet all these scientists and departments of science who have grown up and revolved around evolution being a fact. Sorry, it's just not on. They laugh at Christians. They have a laugh at, you can't think for yourself. It's alright if I can't think too much, but I don't have to do a lot of thinking to realize that you show me the real proof that the world evolved, but they haven't. Even all these years later, and for all the money their oldest sort of colliders cost, they boast on Discovery Channel some of the things they're finding and learning from smashing atoms. Great. Have fun. Knock yourself out. They're trying to find out what caused the Big Bang. That if they ever found out in billions of years what the bang what did cause, or who did cause the bang, they would have to find out how that happened too. So it's an empty, pointless line of networks of science departments, science groups, which are really coming up with nothing. So they want to find out and prove the world and the universe evolved, and it didn't. If they ever proved it did, now they all say, oh, well, there you go. At least it finally proved it to me. But what I think is that when people die, then is when you learn whether it was evolved or created, or if you just go to sleep, that the atheists want us to believe. And there's plenty of them that have dropped into their graves. You know. So now the days of these extraterrestrials and UFOs. What I learned a few months ago of something I was listening to was that there was never a UFO sighting that was public until the U.S. government dropped the first atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there began to be sightings of unidentified flying objects. Since World War II, two particular military bases which have been prevalent under high security are Area 51, Nevada, and Roswell. I can't remember whether it's New Mexico or Utah. I think it's New Mexico. Roswell. So, there's been a lot of activity, a lot of research going on, and there have been people who have paid a terrible price for knowing too much. They got some pretty evil people. You think they deserve to rule over us when they were not elected to do so. So some of their deep secrets hold up deep underground. And last year there was supposedly some declassification of documents from Area 51. And all the information that was worth anything was redded out, blacked out. So it's not like they disclosed anything really. You know, I can't read all that stuff. I don't interest myself in all that, but some of these people who are involved in it, they said any real information that they wanted to read wasn't even there. It was all blacked out. And concerning the Bible, I know there's lots of versions of the Bible out there, but the only version I've ever gone by was the King James Bible, which came out in 1611. It was translated once. I remember when I had missionary work, I used to witness to people, and especially Jewish people, explain to them about salvation, and kind of they'd run off at the mouth of, oh, the Bible's nothing but Aesop's fables and stuff like that, and they'd say, you got to believe in the greatness in you, not some God somewhere. You know, they're atheists. And I don't know, it's really sad that people take so much by blind faith. Anything that comes from university courses, science, they take it, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They just take anything professors say but blind faith. And that's the same as it is with the Bible. It was translated only once from the original manuscripts. And the manuscripts measured parity as accurate as could be with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And concerning UFOs, seraphims, it seems like these researchers place a lot of emphasis on seraphims. They have different interpretations of who they are, whether they're good or bad. But I'm going to read you now what I just came up with this morning in the book of Isaiah, the Old Testament. I'm going to pull it up here. Isaiah 6. I'll just read through a few verses, starting with verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up. Who's he talking about? The Lord. And his train filled the temple. Now, in the 1970s, when I was a lot younger, I did read the King James Bible cover to cover 3 times. You read 5 chapters a day, every day. And I did it as soon as I got through to the end of Revelation. Start over again. Genesis chapter 1. But, you know, nobody can remember very much of what we're reading when you're reading a lot of stuff. And you cannot review it. And that includes all these big shots who are the highest paid people in universities. You're dealing with so much information, it's impossible to remember very much that what you cover and what you read. So this is, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up. And his train, did you get that? T-R-A-I-N. His train filled the temple. Well, he talked about advanced civilization. We thought the guys who invented the railroad tracks were advanced. No. God has a train in his temple. So take that. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. That's talking about God. 2 wings covered his face, 2 wings covered his feet, and 2 more made him fly away. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried. that the house was filled with smoke. Not the tobacco company smoke either. Then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. That sounds like me. I got a bad mouth. People piss me off. This is Isaiah talking. Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, a piece of coal. They even had coal mining. So think about it. And one of the seraphims flew unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar, and he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, that thy sin purged. Now there's a case of salvation right there in the Old Testament, even before Jesus came to die for the sins of the whole world. Isaiah was a prophet of God, so God cleansed him and made him into a prophet. Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And said, here am I, send me. I thought that was really good to just read this first 8 verses. Isaiah 6, 1 to 8. So for anybody who wants to know about those seraphims, they're God's angels. Don't worry about them. They kick anybody's ass. They're going to kick somebody's ass who really needs it. Another thing I want to deal with about this stuff about UFOs, ETs, is that I think I've mentioned it in other videos. However, the Great Tribulation. Okay, for one thing, I don't even think well, I'm open to it, but I don't really think that this end time prophecy hypotheses, which have been really pushed the last few years, is necessarily the real deal of the coming of Christ. I don't. It's because this modern Israel was all manufactured by a bunch of bankers in England. The entire 1900s, the first 2 world wars, were all about finding an excuse to buy the land of Palestine off the King of England. And that's what it was all about. These bankers created all these organizations and institutions, the League of Nations, the United Nations, and all the bullshit. Balfour Declaration, very short document, really made consideration for all the people in the area, for Jewish people were going to return, supposedly return, and have a place in what used to be former Israel. And for 70 years, they had a chance to fix their differences with the Arabs, the Palestinians. But they weren't interested. They were only interested in bullying and finding an excuse to go in with the military hardware and displace more Palestinians and force them into just a huge prison camp. While these so-called wannabe Jews, who aren't even Jews by bloodline, just a bunch of bankers whose ancestors came from Caesarea near Georgia, and Ashkenazis got the militaries to invade and take over the place. And it's really sickening to realize that Christians were lied to by all these propagandists about how to interpret the Bible. And non-stop, this propaganda and this dictatorship by guys like Netanyahu, rubbing the president's nose in it, whoever's the president. If Israel is ever attacked by anyone, the United States has to consider it an attack against them. He's done that several times the last few years. They wanted to take out Iran. They wanted to take out Syria. And, you know, the people who are Israelis would have been okay if they weren't always trying to stir up trouble. That's probably why they were scattered in the first place, thousands of years ago. Nothing but goddamn troublemakers. So, and they expect the Christians to bow before them as their duty to God. And it's basically the message the Christians and the churches have been given. The entire idea that, well, you owe us this as your service to God. And then what did they do over all the wars they got the Christians to fight for them? Then they turn around and dump all kinds of propaganda to the Muslims and to all the people around the world. Look what the Christians did to you. And they write their history, oh, those Christians, look what they've done. They started all the wars. But why did the Christians do that? But they were so scared of God because they were told that if they didn't fight Israel's war for them, they would be judged of God for letting poor little innocent Israel be attacked. It's the biggest lie, the biggest scam of the 1900s. But people are waking up. Now, concerning all this big secrecy about UFOs, and this big drive they have the last few years, since World War II, to persuade the Christians to believe that they had a duty to serve Israel and be their bodyguards. It's over. Okay. And concerning the UFO side of things, when it really does come, when the Antichrist really does step up to the plate, I'm not going to read through every scripture reference and all that, but I'll tell you flat out, the Bible gives the exact number of days, number of weeks, number of months, number of years for the Great Tribulation. I'm not sure about if more churches have caught on in the last few years or not, but the common doctrines of the churches has been that the Great Tribulation would be where Jesus comes before the tribulation to rapture the saints. It's wrong. It's absolutely dead wrong. Now, there's a few other things I want to explain here about heaven and the earth, the extraterrestrials, or whatever. Since the beginning of the earth, it says God created the earth and the heavens. In Genesis 1, verse 2 chapters, I think, it covers all those details in different ways. But when Job was afflicted, is this story to really explain how that in heaven, it's not just a fantasy place where people float around on white clouds. It's got different places. There is heaven where the saints go. There's God, Jesus, the angels. And there's also Satan and his angels. All those people and all those species do have their place in heaven right now, including Satan and all his angels, the fallen angels. Now, there's one thing I'm going to disagree with what seems to be coming out of all these ET sciences that about the captured ETs. Well, they say there are captured ETs and etc. Those seraphims, those angels belonging to Satan, are free to come and go. Satan himself comes and goes. However, at the Great Tribulation, what's going to happen? The Antichrist is going to be killed. 3 days later, he's going to raise from the dead. So people are going to think this is Jesus. When he raises from the dead, an event takes place in heaven. Satan is cast out onto the earth. And no more, during the entire Great Tribulation, no more does Satan have the omniscience to be able to be everywhere at one time. See, in heaven, there's something Jesus said before he left, that by sending his Holy Spirit, he could be everywhere at the same time, be with everybody. So with Satan, during the tribulation, will be the Antichrist. But Satan will only be able to be in one place at one time, in the body of the Antichrist. So I want to make these points really clear. And during the 1,260 days of Great Tribulation, there will be martyrs, because the Antichrist and his forces are going to do what they can do. However, martyrs are a rare exception. He is not going to be allowed to kill all the church, all the Christians. He won't. He will not be allowed to destroy the entire planet. He will not. And I don't give a shit about how strong the military-industrial complex is. God is a lot stronger than that. God, the Creator. All the plagues the book of Revelation talks about afflict the people who take the mark of the beast in their right hand or their forehead. Those are the only people the judgments of God are going to hit, which is going to be the majority of the people on earth. God is going to protect the church. So if you think this is a big joke, just want to laugh it off, go ahead. It's your choice. But if there's anything in you that makes you want to think it over, be a fool like me, and ask God to forgive you for everything you've done that's not right, and commit your soul to Jesus Christ. I have no intentions of living the image of what people think that Christian is. But I know one thing, when I drop dead, I do hope I'll be able to find a little bit of space in heaven. Even if I have to push a few people out of my road just to make room, because they're so much better than I am. So, although I've never seen any UFOs, I've never seen any angels that I could definitely say they were an angel. It doesn't bother me. Well, actually, there has been 2 events which seemed like maybe God did protect me, but I won't get into all that. Anyway, the UFOs, throughout history, throughout history in the Old Testament, God sent angels, good angels, and there's been bad angels. So I don't have any doubts about all this secrecy by the shadow government. And I know one thing, people who really are Christians should not be intimidated, not be ashamed and embarrassed, because if you really are a Christian, and I don't mean one of those self-righteous, arrogant cussers, I'm talking about a real Christian. Don't doubt the UFOs and extraterrestrials and all that stuff, because I'm pretty sure the people who do see them need to see them. So they're aware that there's more than just us and this planet Earth. Anyway, that's enough. I'm going to call it a day. I think I've pretty much covered most of what I wanted to do in this video in a long time. Take care.